When you think about World War II rations, the first things that come to mind are probably Spam, hardtack biscuits, or maybe those Hershey's bars that were engineered not to melt in the tropical heat. But, there is a hidden layer of logistics and nutritional science that the public rarely discusses, because many of these items were classified experimental projects or specialized kits reserved for commandos and downed airmen operating far behind enemy lines. We are going to peel back the layers of history to examine the forgotten survival rations that actually kept men alive in the most extreme conditions on Earth. Before we dive into the gritty details of high-calorie pastes and chemical heating, make sure to subscribe to Atten Recounts and hit that notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the forgotten corners of military history. The D-Ration was designed primarily as a survival tool rather than a meal. To apply this knowledge today, a serious survivalist should look at the concept of caloric density over flavor profile. Modern emergency food bars still use this exact Logan philosophy, utilizing high-fat and complex carbohydrates compressed into a shelf-stable block that is designed to prevent thirst. If you are building a serious bug-out bag, you should prioritize high-calorie density items that do not require water for preparation, just as the D-Ration provided immediate energy without depleting the soldiers' limited canteen supply. Dr. Henry Borsuk developed a multi-purpose food for widespread starvation protocols. One of the most fascinating and least talked about developments was the multi-purpose food developed by biochemist Dr. Henry Borsuk at Caltech. While it gained more traction toward the end of the war and into the reconstruction of decimated Europe, its origins were rooted in the desperate need for a lightweight, protein-rich substance that could be shipped in bulk to starving populations in liberated territories. This was essentially a soy-based grit fortified with essential vitamins and minerals, making it the grandfather of modern soy protein isolates. For a history enthusiast looking to replicate the logistical resilience of that era, the practical takeaway is the extreme utility of soy and legumes. These can be stored for decades if kept perfectly dry and provide a complete amino acid profile when meat is unavailable. You can actually apply this by stocking bulk soy grits or textured vegetable protein, often called TVP. It really mirrors the efficiency of those wartime miracle powders that, saved millions from protein deficiency. The Pacific Theater, it required some pretty specialized stabilization of vitamin C for downed pilots. In the vast expanses of the Pacific Theater, survival often meant the difference between life and death for pilots who crashed on uninhabited islands or deep in the jungle. The emergency personal ration was a specialized kit that included something the public rarely saw back then: concentrated lemon powder enriched with synthetic vitamin C. While we take over-the-counter supplements for granted now, the military was pioneer testing the stabilization of ascorbic acid in, tough tropical conditions to prevent scurvy in men who might be lost for weeks. This was not sugary lemonade. It was a bitter, potent chemical concentrate designed purely for physiological maintenance. A modern survivalist can take a page from this by carrying anhydrous citric acid or pure vitamin C powder. In a long-term survival situation where fresh citrus is unavailable, having a small vial of this shelf-stable powder in your medical kit can prevent the devastating physical breakdown associated with acute vitamin deficiencies. British armoured crews utilised engine heat and hexamine for morale and sanitation. The British also had their own secret weapons in the form of the boiling vessel and specialised T-rations designed specifically for armoured vehicle crews. You know, while it might seem trivial to an outsider, British commanders realised that the morale and physiological warmth provided by a hot drink were as vital as the calories themselves in combat fatigue management. They developed a way to utilise the engine's heat or small chemical tablets to boil water inside a moving tank, reducing the need for crews to disembark. This led to the wide adoption of the hexamine stove, which remains a staple for military and survivalists today. To use this practical history, one should learn how to manage heat signatures and fuel efficiency. A small folding stove with solid fuel tablets is the direct descendant of the World War II British Tommy's kit, allowing you to boil water for sanitation or rehydration without the need for a large, revealing campfire that could give away your position. Experimental Arctic rations, actually looked back to indigenous knowledge of pemmican. We must also look at the so-called pemmican experiments that were conducted for Arctic and high-altitude troops. Based on indigenous North American recipes, which were used by fur traders for centuries, this was a mixture of dried, pounded meat and rendered fat, sometimes with dried berries added in. The military, they tried to industrialize it for cold-weather warfare, and while soldiers often hated the greasy texture and, frankly, the bland taste, its caloric density was pretty much unmatched. As a survivalist, understanding the ratio of fat to protein in pemmican is honestly the ultimate lesson in long-term, high-energy food storage. You can create your own version by dehydrating lean beef until it is brittle, then grinding it into a powder and mixing it with equal parts melted beef tallow. Once cooled, this creates a shelf-stable, calorie-dense puck that, lasts for years without refrigeration. This is perhaps the most actionable forgotten ration because it allows you to create your own high-grade survival food using basic kitchen tools and traditional methods. The chemical engineering of heating tabs, allowed for stealth cooking. We also have to look at the chemical engineering behind the ration heating small, or, early heat tabs. During the war, the military experimented intensely with various chemical compounds that could burn even in high wind, wet or low oxygen environments. These were often kept from general civilian use during the war because, honestly, some early formulations gave off toxic fumes if used in unventilated spaces like bunkers. For the serious historian and survivalist, the lesson here is the importance of stealth cooking. If you are in a tactical situation where you cannot afford a smoke plume, these chemical tabs are your best option. You can practice this by learning to use modern SBIT tabs in a small Dakota fire hole or trench to minimize light and smoke signature, a technique perfected by scouts and raiders in the European theatre to avoid German patrols. The sheer complexity of these specialised rations shows that World War II was won as much in the nutritional laboratory as it was on the battlefield. The ability to keep a man moving and fighting on 3,000 calories a day while he is carrying 60 pounds of gear required a level of nutritional science that was decades ahead of its time. By studying these forgotten rations, we gain more than just interesting historical trivia. We gain a blueprint for self-reliance and metabolic efficiency. We learn that true survival isn't about the variety in your pantry, but the density and stability of your fuel. If you found this breakdown of forgotten wartime logistics valuable, please share this video with someone who appreciates deep dive history. Your support helps us continue uncovering the stories that the standard textbooks leave out. Don't forget to subscribe to Atten Recounts for more in-depth explorations into the technologies and tactics of the past. Keep studying the history and keep your survival skills sharp.